Welcome to Zentiva Sustainability Podcast. At Zentiva, we believe that each and every one of us can contribute to taking care of our planet and do what we can to protect it so that future generations can enjoy life as much as we do. We act today for a sustainable tomorrow, and as part of our environmental pathway, we find it important to educate and empower our associates, and we warmly invite you to join us and follow our new initiative, the Zentiva Sustainability Podcast, with a series of episodes where experts explain different areas of environmental protection.
Hello everyone, I am Alita Sisekova. I'm Junior Sustainability Project Specialist at Zentiva, and during today's episode we will be discussing the topic of biodiversity. We'll learn more, for example, about why is biodiversity important, what are some of the main threats to biodiversity worldwide, and how pollinators contribute to the ecosystem and its resilience. And I would also like to welcome and introduce our guest, Vlastimil Karlik, expert of the Podrželi Lives campaign and international projects in Arnika. And Arnika is a Czech non-profit organization that has been bringing people striving for better environment since 2001. And hello, Vlastimil. Thank you for accepting the invitation for our podcast. And let's start with the basics. Can you define biodiversity for our listeners and why is it important?
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me. I think the shortest definition of biodiversity is that it's a variety of living forms and their interconnections. So we can talk about biodiversity on the level of species, but also on the level of ecosystems, for example.
And can you, for example, explain to us, for example, when it comes to trees and forests, why is this aspect of biodiversity important?
Of course, generally speaking, it's true that the higher is biodiversity, the more resilience and our ecosystems. And in case of forests, it's important diversity on the level of species, but also on the level of age of trees, and also on the level of let's say the shape of the forest.
And do you think planting new trees to the ones that have been disrupted before is a good idea, in your opinion?
Of course, it depends. The best forest is the forest which was never planted, which renew like itself. But of course, in the managed forests which are grown for wood, it's not possible. But we should always pay attention to plant species which are native and which are respectable to conditions on the place where we plant them.
Yeah, thank you so much. And do you have some examples of main threats to biodiversity worldwide today?
Of course, basically, the biggest threats for biodiversity are human activities. That's unfortunately true. It's of course climate change, which is caused by humans, but also our unsustainable agriculture and forestry practices, pollution, and fragmentation of landscape, for example, or even illegal hunting and trade with protected species of animals.
Mm-hmm. And how do pollinators, for example, you can say bees or other insects, also contribute to ecosystem resilience and its stability?
Yes. Pollinators, not only bees, but many other species are important. the rule is that the big variety of pollinators results in big variety of or diversity of plants, because every species have different needs. Some needs like smaller pollinators, some needs bees, some needs bumblebees, bigger ones, some needs birds with like thin and long beaks. So it's really the more diverse our pollinators, the more diverse our ecosystem.
Do you also think that pollinators can exist in cities? Is it possible?
Of course. You can be like surprised how high diversity of different species is also in urban area. I can just give you an example. Then in Prague, we have 93 protected areas on the territory of the city. And there are also places which may not be protected, but have really high diversity. For example, like the old cemeteries. This is fantastic place for animals, for owls, and for other species.
Yeah, I was actually reading as well that a small city in Czech Republic, Brno, had created these species, also biodiversity places in cemeteries, as like the city created different initiatives to restore biodiversity, and especially with cemeteries.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about the urban ecosystem, what do you think are some of the challenges in preserving biodiversity in urban environments?
It's similar like in the landscape, but of course in urban environment these threats are more intense. That is like the biggest problem is lack of space. Nature needs space and time. Ideally, some undisturbed places where nature can do its job, but also there's problem in urban areas. You can have conflicts with technical infrastructure. Urban environment is for nature even more fragmented than the landscape, yeah, of course, you have pollution from the waste. So yeah, there is a lot of challenges, but nature can be very resilient.
Yeah, that's true. And when we're talking about humans impacting biodiversity, how do you think the human activities impact biodiversity, and what can we do as a society to mitigate these effects?
Actually, we can say that there were some studies, for example, in Europe, because in Europe for decades we have quite ambitious goals to protect and stop the decline of biodiversity, but these goals are not met. So there are extensive studies why it is so. And so we can identify like the biggest threats for biodiversity, biggest problems. And as I said, on the first place is agriculture, on the second forestry, and then there we have these other problems: fragmentations of landscape, pollution. There is some tendency to create landscape more uniform. So that's not only like in our countries, but worldwide.
We also wanted to ask for your contribution, and thank you for this. And also we wanted to ask, how does Arnika, if you can like tell us about the organization, what do you do, and where could, for example, people from Prague find you, or from Czech Republic?
Okay, so we have the main headquarters in Prague, and we are dealing with 3 topics for the whole our existence, with toxic and waste issues, with protection of rivers and biodiversity, and with supporting the rights of citizens to participate in decision-making processes. We have we have currently about, I think, 25 or 30 campaigns, so it's it's really difficult to pick some things. But I'm working especially on river issues, so I can say that we work not only in Czech Republic but also transboundary with Poland and Germany, and also in countries like Georgia, Moldova, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and other countries where we are trying to help them to protect the very high biodiversity that some of them still have on their territory.
Oh, that's amazing, and thank you, Vlastimil, for taking us on this journey about why is biodiversity important, and thank you for your time and talking about how we as humans can mitigate our impact on the effects we have on biodiversity, and also thank all of you.
If I can say one more thing, on like the final thing, I think we can talk a lot about how to mitigate the impact of our activities on nature and on biodiversity. But for me, the main thing is, even I was in this interview speaking like there is here we are our human world, and and there in some other place there is nature. It's not true. There is only one word. We are nature. We are environment. So I'm really enraged if I hear politicians say that we cannot let the nature conservation to destroy our economy. For me, it's other way around. What we cannot afford is to allow economy, or more precisely, particular economic interests to destroy nature, to destroy environment, because it means destroying us.
Yeah, I think it's people forget how strongly the nature and the business is actually connected. We had a couple of workshops where we talked about how much it was the European Union. They found out that around 70% of all businesses are connected to entirely to water, or like to different resources in nature. So I think it's important to understand this aspect as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you also for your time. I know, thank you so much, and thank all of you for listening.